My name is Christina, and I am 32 years old. For most of my life, I have lived in the shadow of others, especially my younger sister, Tiffany, the golden child of our family. But before I tell you about her, I need to tell you about me. 3 years ago, I lost my husband, Mark, to a sudden heart attack. One day, he was full of life, making silly jokes over dinner, and the next he was gone, leaving me and our daughter, Donna, to face the world alone. I can still remember the silence that filled our small apartment that night, broken only by Donna's quiet sobs. She was only 9 at the time, far too young to lose her father. In that moment, I promised myself that I would protect her at all costs, no matter what it took. Today, I live with Donna in Los Angeles. Life is modest. I work as a freelance web developer, juggling projects to keep our bills paid. Our apartment isn't big, but it's filled with warmth, laughter, and the kind of peace that money can't buy. Donna is 12 now, wise beyond her years, thoughtful, and strong in ways that inspire me daily. She has been my anchor, my reason to get out of bed each morning. But peace has never lasted long in my family. My parents, Brenda and Martin, never showed me much love or support. From childhood, they reserved their affection for Tiffany, who grew up to become a fashion model and brand ambassador. To them, she was the star, the shining jewel of the family. And me? I was the quiet one, the overlooked daughter who never quite measured up. Even after Mark's death, when Donna and I needed family more than ever, they never offered help. Not a kind word, not even a visit. I've carried that neglect for years, but nothing prepared me for what happened on the night of Tiffany's wedding. That night, my family's cruelty went too far. They tried to destroy me, and worse, they tried to destroy my daughter. But what they didn't know was that justice had its own way of catching up. This is our story, the story of betrayal, violence, and the unexpected strength that turned everything around. Growing up in my family was like being cast in a play where the script had already been written, and my role was the shadow. My younger sister, Tiffany, was the star of the show, dazzling everyone with her beauty and confidence. From the moment she was born, it felt as though my parents had decided she was destined for greatness, while I was just there. My mother, Brenda, was the kind of woman who lived through appearances. She adored the idea of perfection. Perfect clothes, perfect posture, perfect children. And to her, Tiffany embodied all of that. With her striking looks and natural charm, Tiffany became the child my mother paraded at family gatherings, school events, and eventually in front of modeling agencies. I, on the other hand, was the one asked to stay in the background, to keep quiet, to accept my role as the responsible older daughter. My father, Martin, was no better. He wasn't cruel outright, but his silence was its own form of betrayal. Whenever I tried to stand up for myself, whenever I felt the sting of my mother's favoritism, my father's only response was silence. He never defended me, never challenged Brenda's harshness. It was easier for him to retreat into his armchair with a newspaper than to confront the obvious imbalance in our family. By the time Tiffany's career as a fashion model and brand ambassador took off, the gap between us had grown into a canyon. She traveled in circles of glamour, red carpets, fashion shows, glossy magazine covers. My parents celebrated her every step, sending out holiday letters filled with her accomplishments, as if Tiffany alone represented the Davenport family. Meanwhile, my life, though steady and hardworking, barely earned a mention. Even after Mark died, leaving me widowed at 29, I hoped for at least a little compassion. But my parents offered none. There were no visits, no phone calls asking if I needed help raising Donna. It was as if my grief didn't fit into their narrative of perfection. Tiffany, meanwhile, continued her rise, seemingly untouched by reality, flaunting her success while I struggled to rebuild my life piece by piece. Donna, my 12-year-old daughter, became my anchor. She has a thoughtful soul, one that notices details most people overlook. Where Tiffany chases flashing cameras, Donna prefers to sketch in her notebook, drawing quiet worlds of kindness and imagination. Sometimes, She'll look at me with those wise brown eyes and say things that make me feel like she's the one taking care of me, not the other way around. Our life in Los Angeles is modest. My apartment is small, tucked into a quiet building, and my work as a freelance web developer pays the bills just enough to keep us comfortable. We don't have luxury, but we do have something far more valuable: peace, laughter, and love. Our evenings are often spent cooking together, Donna stirring a pot of pasta while I review code on my laptop. She'll hum softly to herself, and in those moments, I feel proud that we've managed to build something real, something my family could never understand. Yet beneath that peace lies an ache I've never fully been able to shake. It's the ache of being invisible, of knowing that no matter how hard I've worked, my parents will always see me as second best. Donna doesn't deserve that. She deserves grandparents who see her for who she is, not who she isn't. But as much as I tried to distance myself from their toxic grip, fate had other plans. Tiffany's wedding invitation would soon arrive, pulling us right back into the orbit of a family that had never truly wanted us. The invitation arrived on a Thursday afternoon, tucked neatly inside a gold-trimmed envelope. I remember pulling it out of my mailbox, the thick cardstock heavy in my hand, the elegant calligraphy spelling out, Tiffany and Kevin. There was no personal note, no warm message addressed to me or to Donna. Just a formality, as though Tiffany's secretary had checked off our names from a list and sent it out of obligation. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the shimmering lettering while Donna unpacked her school bag. She noticed my silence and asked what I was holding. When I showed her the card, her face lit up with a kind of innocent excitement only a 12-year-old could have. "Mom, maybe this is a chance," she said, her voice hopeful. "Maybe Grandma and Grandpa will finally see us as part of the family again." I wanted to share her hope, but years of experience weighed on me like a stone. My parents had made it clear countless times that Tiffany was their priority. The thought of stepping back into that environment filled me with unease. Still, I saw the longing in Donna's eyes, the desire for belonging, for acceptance, for family. How could I deny her that chance? "All right," I said finally, forcing a smile. "We'll go. But remember, we're going for us, not for them." Donna nodded, but I could tell her heart was already dreaming of something bigger, reconciliation, maybe even love. Over the next few days, I found myself preparing quietly. Not just in terms of clothes or gifts, but emotionally. I kept reminding myself not to expect kindness, not to expect fairness. Still, a small part of me couldn't help wondering if perhaps Tiffany had changed, if maybe she had grown past the jealousy and competition of our youth. Maybe marriage would ground her. Maybe my parents would soften with age. The wedding was set in one of Los Angeles's most luxurious venues, a place so far removed from our modest apartment that it felt like stepping into another universe. Donna chattered excitedly about what she might wear, sketching little dress designs in her notebook, while I tried to balance her enthusiasm with practicality. "Mom," she asked one evening, "do you think Aunt Tiffany will be happy to see us?" I hesitated before answering. "I think she'll be surprised. But we'll be there, and that's what matters." Meanwhile, news of the wedding rippled through old connections. Donald, a college classmate of mine, reached out. He worked as a freelance videographer now and had been hired by Kevin's family to capture parts of the event. "It'll be strange to see you there," he said with a laugh when we spoke on the phone. "But maybe it'll be good too." I hadn't seen Ronald in years, but his voice brought back memories of simpler times, before loss, before bitterness, before Tiffany's shadow grew so long. I wasn't sure what role he would play in all this, but his presence gave me an odd sense of comfort. As the wedding day approached, the gold-trimmed invitation remained pinned to our fridge, a reminder of the world we were about to step into. Donna saw hope in it. I saw danger. And neither of us had any idea just how dark that night would become. The day of Tiffany's wedding dawned bright and clear, as if Los Angeles itself had been dressed in celebration. Donna was buzzing with excitement from the moment she woke up, twirling around the living room in her pale blue dress. I had chosen something simple for myself, a dark green gown that wasn't extravagant, but elegant enough to blend into the crowd. I reminded myself that we weren't there to impress anyone. We were there because Donna wanted to believe in family. The venue was breathtaking. A grand hotel ballroom had been transformed into a dreamscape of chandeliers dripping with crystal, roses arranged in golden vases, and champagne glasses lined up like soldiers on polished tables. Everything glittered: the floors, the lights, the people. It was the kind of event Tiffany thrived in, where every glance and whisper was a performance, every photograph a chance to shine brighter than the rest. As Donna and I entered, the shift in the atmosphere was immediate. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some guests offered polite nods, but most looked at us as if we were uninvited strangers who had wandered in by mistake. My palms grew damp, but I kept my chin high, refusing to let the disdain pierce me. Brenda, my mother, was the first to approach. She wore a gown nearly as extravagant as Tiffany's, her hair perfectly sculpted, her expression cold as ice. "You came," she said flatly, her eyes scanning me from head to toe before flicking to Donna. "Try not to cause a scene." Donna's hand tightened around mine, and I forced a steady smile. "We're just here to celebrate." Behind Brenda, my father, Martin, stood quietly, hands folded in front of him. He gave a small nod in our direction but said nothing, just as he had always done. His silence burned more than words ever could. Then there was Tiffany. She floated across the room in a gown worth more than my annual income, every detail designed to magnify her presence. Lace sleeves, a cascading train, diamonds that caught the light with every step. She looked like a queen, and she knew it. Well, she said with a smirk. "I didn't think you'd actually come. Brave of you, Christina." Her tone wasn't welcoming. It was a challenge, as though my very presence in her kingdom was an act of defiance. Guests nearby chuckled under their breath, eager to see what drama might unfold. I swallowed hard and forced myself to remain calm. "We came to support you. That's all." Her smirk only deepened before she turned away, soaking in the admiration of her admirers. Donna looked up at me with wide eyes, confused but still clinging to her hope that maybe, just maybe, things would get better as the night went on. As the ceremony began, I noticed Ronald near the back, his camera in hand. He caught my eye and gave a subtle nod, a gesture that reassured me more than I expected. Amid the cold stares and whispered judgments, his presence was a reminder that someone, at least, saw me without contempt. But as the evening progressed, the tension thickened. The luxury around us felt more like a trap than a celebration, the chandeliers casting harsh light on every flaw, every whispered insult. Deep down, I sensed that we were standing on the edge of something dangerous. And I was right. The ceremony ended with applause, Tiffany and Kevin walking hand in hand down the aisle as cameras flashed like fireworks. Guests cheered, glasses clinked, and the ballroom transformed into a whirlwind of chatter and celebration. But even in the sea of laughter and music, I couldn't shake the uneasy weight in my chest. I had been in this family long enough to know, when my mother and sister whispered to each other, trouble followed. It happened during the reception, just as Donna and I were standing near the dessert table, quietly enjoying a slice of cake. Tiffany, radiant in her gown, suddenly raised her voice loud enough for the room to hear. "Where's my watch?" she demanded, her tone sharp and accusing. The music softened, the crowd shifted, and all eyes turned toward her. She scanned the room before locking her gaze on Donna. My heart froze. "You," Tiffany said, pointing directly at her. "You were near my dressing room earlier. Did you take it?" Donna's fork slipped from her hand, clattering onto her plate. Her eyes widened, tears instantly welling up.
"What?"
"No, I didn't take anything." The guests began murmuring. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. Brenda appeared at Tiffany's side, her face etched with feigned outrage. "I told you, Tiffany," Brenda said loudly, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "That child has always been trouble. First her mother brings shame to this family, and now the daughter steals." Donna's lips trembled as she shook her head, her small hands clutching at my sleeve. "Mom, I didn't do it. I promise." I stepped forward, my voice trembling but firm. Stop this nonsense. Donna hasn't stolen anything. How dare you humiliate her like this? But Tiffany wasn't finished. She pressed a hand to her chest, as if wounded. Not only did she steal, now she's lying too. How typical. Like mother, like daughter. The words sliced through me like a blade. I wanted to scream, but I could see Donna's face crumbling under the weight of the accusation, and I knew I had to stay steady for her. Enough, I snapped. If there's a missing watch, call security. Search the room. Search me. Search my daughter. You'll find nothing because this is nothing but a cruel performance. The crowd gasped at my defiance. For years, I had played the role of the quiet daughter, the silent sister. Now I stood in front of them, unflinching. Kevin, the groom, had been watching from the edge of the scene. His brow furrowed as he glanced between Tiffany and me, clearly unsettled. Tiffany, are you sure about this? He asked cautiously. Tiffany's eyes flashed with anger, as though his doubt was a betrayal. Of course I'm sure. She was there. Who else could it be? Donna's tears spilled freely now. I didn't, Uncle Kevin. I swear. Her small voice trembled, but her honesty shone through every syllable. And yet, my father, Martin, stood at the back of the room, silent as always. He could have stepped forward, could have spoken reason into the chaos, but he didn't. He folded his arms and stared at the floor, his silence a louder condemnation than Tiffany's lies. I wrapped an arm around Donna, holding her close, my voice breaking as I looked Tiffany straight in the eye. You've done cruel things before, but this, accusing a child, your own niece, this is unforgivable. The guests were divided. Some whispered in doubt, others in judgment. But I could see the unease spreading, the cracks in Tiffany's perfect facade beginning to show. Then, suddenly, Ronald appeared, camera in hand, eyes narrowed. He had been filming quietly all evening, and now he stood tall, his voice steady. Funny thing, Tiffany, he said, I've been recording since before the ceremony. And I didn't see any watch. Maybe because it doesn't exist. The room went silent. Tiffany's face drained of color, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. She sneered at Ronald. Stay out of this. You're not family. But the damage was done. Doubt spread like smoke through the crowd, and Tiffany's accusation no longer rang with certainty. It rang with desperation. I tightened my grip on Donna's hand, feeling her heartbeat racing against mine. I knew this wasn't over. Tiffany wouldn't stop here. Something darker was brewing, and I feared the night was only just beginning. The ballroom, once filled with laughter and music, had shifted into something far more dangerous. The whispers had grown louder, circling us like vultures. Donna clung to me, her small frame trembling, her tear-streaked face buried against my arm. I wanted to grab her hand and walk out, to leave behind the cruelty and hypocrisy of this family gathering, but something told me Tiffany wouldn't allow us to slip away quietly. Tiffany stood on the stage at the center of the room, glowing under the chandeliers, her gown cascading like a waterfall of lace. She had always loved an audience, and now she had won. Hundreds of guests hanging on her every word, waiting to see what she would do next. My mother, Brenda, was by her side, fanning the flames with her dramatic sighs and pointed glares. This family has been embarrassed enough tonight, Tiffany declared, her voice sharp as glass. And all because Christina couldn't raise her daughter properly. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My chest tightened, but before I could speak, Donna tried to defend herself. I didn't do anything, she cried, her voice breaking. That was when Tiffany snapped. Her eyes blazed with fury as she swept a heavy brass goblet from the table beside her. For a second, time seemed to freeze, the golden light catching the metal, her gown glinting like armor, her lips curled into a sneer. And then, before anyone could stop her, she hurled the goblet at Donna with a force I could never have imagined. The sound of metal striking flesh rang out, followed by a sickening thud as Donna crumpled to the floor. A streak of blood trailed down her forehead as she collapsed off the stage, her small body hitting the polished floor with a hollow echo. The entire room gasped in horror. A woman screamed. Someone dropped a champagne glass, the shatter punctuating the silence. "Donna!" I screamed, my knees hitting the ground as I scrambled to her side. Her eyes fluttered weakly, blood pooling against her temple. My trembling hands pressed against the wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. Panic rose in my throat, threatening to choke me, but I forced myself to stay steady for her sake. "How could you?" I cried, looking up at Tiffany, who still stood on the stage, her chest heaving, her expression unapologetic. Kevin, her groom, her brand new husband, was frozen for a moment, his mouth open in disbelief. Then, as the weight of what had just happened sank in, his face twisted with rage. He stormed across the room, yanking the wedding ring from his finger. "That's it," he shouted, his voice echoing over the stunned silence. "We're done, Tiffany. I will not be married to a monster." He threw the ring onto the ground, the sound of metal against marble cutting through the room. Tiffany's eyes widened, not with regret, but with shock that her perfect facade had finally shattered in front of her audience. Kevin turned toward his parents, Jack and Olivia, who had been seated near the front. They stood with grim faces, their disappointment palpable. Without another word, they walked out with him, leaving Tiffany abandoned in the ruins of her own spectacle. The crowd erupted into chaos. Guests stumbled back, whispering in disbelief, some reaching for their phones to capture the scandal unfolding before them. Others hurried toward me, offering tissues, water, anything, while I stayed crouched beside my daughter, whispering reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. "You're okay, baby. Stay with me. Please stay with me," I begged, my voice breaking. Tiffany descended from the stage, her gown dragging behind her, her face twisted in defiance. "She brought this on herself," she spat, pointing at Donna as though my bleeding child was nothing more than collateral damage. That was when Ronald stepped forward, his camera still rolling. He positioned himself between Tiffany and me, his eyes cold with fury. "Enough, Tiffany. I have everything on video. Every word, every action. You'll pay for this." Brenda shrieked, grabbing Tiffany's arm. "Don't say another word. We'll handle this." But even as she tried to maintain control, I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. I pressed my hand firmly against Donna's wound, my own tears blurring my vision. "You will never touch my daughter again," I whispered, my voice shaking but resolute. For the first time in years, I wasn't the quiet, invisible sister. I wasn't the neglected daughter. I was a mother, fierce, desperate, unyielding. And Tiffany had just crossed the line that would destroy her. The night was no longer just a wedding. It had become the battlefield where truth would finally be revealed. The room was spinning with panic. Donna lay limp in my arms, blood trickling from her wound, her small body frighteningly still. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pressed a napkin to her temple, whispering desperately, "Stay with me, sweetheart. Please stay with me." Amid the chaos, Ronald's voice rose above the crowd. "Call the police, now." His camera was still rolling, capturing every detail of the nightmare. He pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed himself, his voice steady even as the room erupted into shouting. "Yes, this is an emergency. We need police and paramedics at the Grand Regency Hotel, ballroom level. A child has been assaulted. The attacker is still here." Gasps echoed as his words cut through the noise. Guests who had been whispering and recording on their phones suddenly stepped back, their expressions shifting from curiosity to fear. Tiffany froze, her hand still trembling from where she had thrown the goblet, while Brenda clutched her daughter's arm as if trying to anchor her. Minutes later, though it felt like hours, the sharp wail of sirens pierced the air outside. Uniformed police officers stormed into the ballroom, followed closely by paramedics with medical bags and a stretcher. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, clearing a path toward us. "Over here," Ronald shouted, waving them forward. The paramedics knelt beside me, their movements swift and precise. One gently pried my blood-soaked napkin away, while another checked Donna's pulse and shone a light into her eyes. Relief washed through me when I heard him say, "She's responsive." We need to stabilize her and get her to the hospital right away. They carefully lifted Donna onto the stretcher, securing her with straps. My chest tightened as I watched them place an oxygen mask over her face. I kissed her hand quickly before they wheeled her out, refusing to let her see the fear written all over me. Meanwhile, the police wasted no time. Officer Grant, tall and commanding, stepped forward. His gaze fixed on Tiffany and Brenda, his voice clipped and firm. "You're both under arrest. Ma'am, you assaulted a minor in front of dozens of witnesses. And you," he turned to Brenda, "are complicit in false accusations that endangered this child." The sight of handcuffs snapping around Tiffany's wrists silenced the room. Brenda shrieked, "This is a mistake. We're the victims here," but her protests fell flat against the mountain of evidence. Ronald raised his camera higher, ensuring nothing escaped record. Martin, my father, stood off to the side, pale and motionless. The police questioned him briefly before escorting him out for further investigation. True to form, he said nothing, his silence louder than any defense he might have given. As Tiffany and Brenda were led out in handcuffs, the guests erupted into frenzied whispers. The glamorous facade of the wedding had shattered completely, leaving nothing but scandal and disgrace behind. Ronald placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Go with Donna. I'll meet you at the hospital. I'll make sure the video gets into the right hands." Numb, I followed the paramedics through the Grand Hotel lobby, the sound of Tiffany's shrill protests echoing behind me as the doors closed. Outside, flashing red and blue lights illuminated the night, turning the opulent entrance into a crime scene. As the ambulance pulled away, I sat beside Donna, holding her hand, whispering promises I prayed I could keep. "You're safe now, baby. I won't let them hurt you again." For years, I had endured my family's cruelty in silence. But as I watched Donna's chest rise and fall under the paramedics' care, something hardened inside me. This time, I wouldn't be silent. This time, I would fight. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet dread. I sat at Donna's bedside, watching her chest rise and fall, my heart aching with every beep of the monitor. She was stable, the doctors assured me, but the gash on her forehead would take weeks to heal, and the emotional scars, those were deeper still. I stroked her hair gently as she slept, whispering promises into the silence. "It's over now. I'll make sure they never touch you again." But in my heart, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Justice had to be served. 2 days later, Ronald came to visit with a folder tucked under his arm. His usual easy smile was replaced with determination. "I've already copied the footage and backed it up in 3 places," he said, setting the folder on the table. "You've got everything you need to press charges. And I've found someone who can help, Carla Morgan. She's one of the best child advocacy lawyers in Los Angeles. I've worked with her before on a case. She won't back down." The following morning, I met Carla in her office. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a voice that carried both authority and compassion. She listened carefully as I told her everything, from Tiffany's accusation about the missing watch to the goblet crashing against Donna's head. Ronald set his camera on her desk and played the video. Carla's expression hardened as she watched. "This is more than enough," she said firmly when the clip ended. "We'll file charges immediately. Tiffany will face assault of a minor, Brenda will be charged with false accusation and complicity, and Martin," she paused, her eyes narrowing. "His silence may not be criminal, but the court will see his negligence for what it is." Within weeks, the case went to trial. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and former fans of Tiffany who wanted to see the scandal unravel. The same chandeliers and polished floors that once shone on her wedding day had been replaced by the stark fluorescent lights of justice. The prosecution laid out the evidence methodically: Ronald's video, the ballroom's CCTV footage, and Donna's medical report. One by one, witnesses were called: guests who had seen the goblet fly, who had heard Tiffany's accusations, who had watched Brenda cheer her daughter on. When it was Tiffany's turn to take the stand, her once glamorous image was gone. She still wore expensive clothes, but her makeup couldn't hide the bitterness etched into her face. "It was an accident," she claimed, her voice trembling with forced tears. I didn't mean to hurt her. I was upset. Everyone's exaggerating. But the video didn't lie. The moment the goblet left her hand, the rage in her eyes, the sneer on her lips, it was all there, undeniable. The courtroom murmured with disgust. Brenda tried to defend herself as well. I was only trying to protect my daughter, she insisted. That little girl. She has a name, I interrupted, my voice echoing across the room. Her name is Donna, and she is 12 years old. She is innocent. She is a child you tried to destroy. For once, Brenda had no comeback. Martin sat stiffly, his testimony nothing more than shrugs and muttered excuses. The judge, unimpressed, remarked, "Your silence allowed cruelty to thrive. That is no less shameful than the acts themselves." Finally, the verdict came. Tiffany was sentenced to several years in state prison for assaulting a minor. Brenda received jail time for her complicity and false accusation. Martin's punishment was lighter, community service and mandated counseling, but his reputation, like theirs, lay in ruins. The judge issued a permanent restraining order. None of them could ever contact Donna or me again. The words felt like a breath of fresh air, a promise of safety I had longed for my entire life. As the gavel struck, I looked over at Donna, who sat bravely beside me, her forehead bandaged but her spirit unbroken. She gave me a small smile, and in that moment I knew we had won more than a legal battle. We had reclaimed our dignity. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. I shielded Donna from the noise, but Ronald stayed close, his steady presence grounding us. "It's over," he said softly. "They can't hurt you anymore." For the first time in years, I believed him. When the courtroom doors finally closed behind us, it felt like stepping into a new world. The chaos, the lies, the cruelty, all of it had been left behind in that stark chamber of judgment. For once, Donna and I were free. At home, the days passed quietly. Donna returned to school, her bandage gradually replaced by a small scar that she wore like a badge of strength. She didn't complain, not once. Instead, she asked questions about the trial, about why people could be so cruel, and about what it meant to move forward. I didn't always have the answers, but I knew one thing. I wanted her to grow up never doubting her worth again. Our evenings regained their rhythm. I worked on my freelance projects while Donna sketched at the kitchen table. Sometimes she drew pictures of birds, wings spread wide, flying high above the city. Other times she drew the two of us, hand in hand, standing taller than the skyscrapers. Each drawing felt like a message of hope, a reminder that she hadn't lost her innocence entirely, just reshaped it into resilience. Ronald became a regular part of our lives in those weeks. He stopped by often, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with takeout, always with an encouraging word or a warm smile. He and Donna bonded quickly. She loved asking him about his work, about the different places he had filmed, about the stories he carried behind his camera. He answered each question with patience, treating her not like a child but like someone whose curiosity mattered. One evening, as Donna dozed on the couch, Ronald and I sat with coffee mugs between us. "You know," he said, "I've always admired how strong you are. Even back in college, you had this quiet determination. And now, seeing how you fought for Donna, it's inspiring." His words touched something in me I hadn't felt in years. For so long, I had been dismissed, overlooked, silenced. To be seen now, to be recognized not as Tiffany's sister but as myself, it was both healing and terrifying. I wasn't ready to think about the future just yet. But I could feel something shifting, a gentle warmth where once there had only been cold. Donna and I were healing day by day. And maybe, just maybe, there was space in our lives for more than survival. For the first time, the shadow of my family no longer defined me. We were free to write our own story. The weeks after the trial blended into a gentle rhythm of healing. Donna was thriving again, her laughter filling the apartment, her confidence slowly rebuilding with each passing day. She still carried the scar on her forehead, but instead of hiding it, she touched it proudly when anyone asked. "It just means I'm stronger now," she'd say, and I couldn't help but admire her courage. Ronald's presence in our lives grew naturally, like sunlight filtering into a room that had been dark for too long. He didn't force his way in, didn't try to fill Mark's place, but he showed up in the ways that mattered, helping Donna with her school projects, repairing a squeaky door hinge in our apartment, cooking dinner when I was too tired to move from my desk. He treated Donna with patience and kindness, and me with a respect I had almost forgotten existed. One Saturday afternoon, Ronald invited us to a small park cafe near the city. The cafe overlooked a stretch of green lawn where children played and couples strolled hand in hand. Donna sat across from us, happily sipping hot chocolate, while I let the warmth of my coffee soothe me. Ronald seemed unusually quiet, his eyes flicking from me to Donna as if he were gathering courage. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Christina," he began, his voice steady but softer than usual, "these past months have shown me something I can't ignore. I admire you, your strength, your resilience, your love for Donna. And Donna," he turned to her with a smile, "you've become like family to me. I don't just want to be around for now. I want to be around, always." My heart skipped a beat as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple but beautiful ring. "Christina, will you marry me? I promise to love you, and I promise to love Donna as if she were my own daughter." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that life had finally turned toward light. Donna's face lit up with joy. "Say yes, Mom," she whispered urgently, her small hand squeezing mine. I looked at Ronald, at the sincerity in his eyes, and felt the weight of years of neglect and pain fall away. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Yes, I will." Donna clapped her hands, laughing, and Ronald slipped the ring onto my finger. In that moment, sitting in a simple park cafe, we became a family, not built on obligation or appearances, but on love, respect, and truth. Our wedding was small and intimate, the opposite of Tiffany's grand spectacle. No chandeliers, no staged perfection, just a handful of close friends, laughter, and genuine joy. Donna stood proudly by my side, holding the bouquet as I said my vows. This time, there were no shadows, only light. The sun streamed gently through our apartment windows, casting a golden glow across the living room. Donna sat on the rug, sketching in her notebook as Ronald and I watched from the couch. Her laughter filled the air, light and unburdened, and I realized how far we had come. Life had changed in ways I never thought possible. For years, I had carried the weight of being invisible, the neglected daughter, the overlooked sister, the widow trying to survive. My family had tried to shatter me and, worse, my daughter. But in the end, it was their cruelty that destroyed them, not us. Tiffany and Brenda were serving their sentences, their once golden reputations reduced to headlines of disgrace. Martin had faded into quiet obscurity, a man defined by his silence. And for once, their absence from our lives was not a wound, it was a gift. The restraining order meant safety. The trial meant justice. But most importantly, Donna and I had found peace. Ronald's presence made that peace even stronger. He was not Mark, and he never tried to be. Instead, he carved out his own place in our lives, steady and kind. His love for Donna was genuine, the kind of fatherly care she had been missing since Mark's death. And his love for me was patient, gentle, and real. Together, we built something that wasn't perfect but was ours. Sometimes, late at night, I would reflect on the journey. The pain, the betrayal, the violence, it had all been a storm that nearly drowned us. But from it, we had emerged stronger. Donna with her courage, me with my determination, and Ronald with his unwavering support. I used to believe survival was all I could hope for. But as I looked at the two people beside me, I understood something deeper. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more content like this. Stay tuned. The next story is coming soon.